So we are on page 333. Look at that, three threes. That's a very auspicious number. It's the number of, let's see, if I pull in numerology, three threes. I think that's the number of three, three, and three is nine. That's the number of initiation of new beginnings. And 333 would be, gosh, those are the three worlds of three, I guess, or something. I don't know. Anyway, when I was playing around in the Old Testament, there's lots of Jewish numerology in the Old Testament. And my grandfather, who was a minister for his whole life, was deeply interested in the book of Revelation in the New Testament, which if you ever read that book, it's sort of like an LSD trip. I mean, it's got all kinds of crazy things happening in there. And he had a belief that that numerology played a great deal in understanding the revelation. I've never had that much faith in that, but any of the weird stuff that you find coming out of Christianity, these doomsday cults and these all these weird theories about the future and about different countries, all of that stuff comes out of the revelation, because the revelation is it's so cryptic. It's got dragons, it's got, it's just got everything in there. Crazy monsters, crazy angels, demons, and all manner of things going on in there. And it sounds meaningful, because it gives the numbers and it gives the length of times and how long things endure. And so you read it and it really is very tempting to kind of align it, with history somehow, to say, oh, that has to be that. Oh, and that has to be that. Anyway, that's another, I don't know if that would be a lesson or not, but that would be another conversation. So we're on three threes, page 333 in Sri Sarada Devi in her divine play, looking at God as mother. God, yes, manifesting her compassion. I got my pronouns mixed up there. All right, so page 333. We're getting very close to Mother's family and seeing kind of, well, interestingly enough, for her being such a light of spirituality, to be surrounded with a family that's so materially oriented and so self-interested. It's interesting to find, how she manages to deal with that, how she manages to play a part in that, and how she knows it about them. She's clear. She says it at times, but it doesn't affect the way she treats them. She's always very compassionate, always looking for ways of serving and helping. It's quite something, and yet the family remains the same to her. So one day in Jairambati, Subhashini and Shurabala were quarreling. Prasanna came to Holy Mother and said, "Sister, this is unbearable. Please settle their fight." Meanwhile, both sisters-in-law came to the mother, and Shurabala began to abuse her. The mother calmly said to her, so see, there are little things like that you have to notice. The mother, has been attacked here by Shurabala after somebody else has complained about the fighting of the other two girls. And mother still is very composed, calmly says to her, "Look, as long as I am in this family, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva will dwell in this household. As soon as I leave, there will be no end to your misery." How's that for a warning? Tormented by her insane sister-in-law, Holy Mother once remarked, "My mind is eager to soar high into a spiritual plane. I feel compassion for them and I keep it down. And what do I get in return? I get only abuse and insults." But what a marvelous thing. Just reading that sentence there quickly, I felt a little envy for Mother that she has a mind that's eager to soar high into the spiritual plane. It's like my mind's always out, rooting in the dirt somewhere, looking for truffles, I guess. I don't know, but quite a different experience. And that, she keeps it down out of compassion for her family. It's not their behavior that keeps her down, you know. It's her wanting to be of service, or it's her heart, actually. It's that mother heart. Once Holy Mother said to Shurabala, "You are so proud of a daughter who is whining, whimpering, and sniffling all the time. Look at them." She continued, pointing to her devotees. "My wonderful jewel-like children. I am the mother without giving birth to any child." How sweet that is. Yeah. Radhu and Manmatha were Surabala's mainstay. She felt insecure if she was not with them. Unfortunately, her mental disorder sometimes caused her to have delusions concerning the pair. One day, while she was cooking in Jairambati, the thought of Manmata suddenly came to her mind. She searched for Manmata in the house but could not find him. Then she thought perhaps she had gone to bathe in the Banerjee's pond. She went there and began to search in the water. When she could not find him, she concluded that she must have drowned. She returned to the house, fell at Holy Mother's feet, and burst into tears, crying, "Sister, my son-in-law has drowned in Banerjee's pond. What will happen now?" Startled, the mother called loudly for her disciples and told them what Shurabala had said. Hari responded, "Well, just now I saw Manmata playing cards in a shop." Holy Mother asked her disciples to bring him home right then. They went to the shop and escorted him to the mother. Shurabala was ashamed and embarrassed when she saw Manmata and immediately went to her room. Holy Mother was greatly relieved. Yes, I can so see that. Yeah. That jumping to conclusions like that. I remember, gosh, I used to do that when I was a kid. I used to have to babysit my brothers, and I would get so nervous when my parents would leave, just afraid that they'd have an accident or they wouldn't get back or something would happen. So I know exactly what Shurabala was feeling there. You can't find them, and you just start panicking, and these unreasonable thoughts come to mind. My parents were always supposed to be home by 10, and sometimes they didn't get home that early, and I would sit there, and every 5 minutes, I would be up and looking out the window and, running down and checking the garage to see if the car was there. And so I understand her fear here, but you have to control that fear. You can't go jumping off to these wild confusions and making statements, especially if you don't know what's going on. That's always important. And in a time when when a crisis is going on like that, I really learned this during the San Francisco earthquake in '89. People were just saying stuff. They would hear something, and they would just say it. And so I remember we were all outside because there was no power, and people weren't sure if there were gas leaks or anything. So everybody, all the neighbors in the neighborhood, were outside, and everybody was bringing all of their food from the freezers, that weren't running, bringing all their food out, and we were having these big cookouts in the streets of everybody because nobody could go into their home, and nobody could, all their stuff was going to go bad. And so we were all out there, and, we heard that the Bay Bridge was down. We heard that the Golden Gate Bridge had fallen over. We had heard that downtown was in flames and it was all gone. And, it was hearing all this crazy stuff. And then you would immediately hear the opposite from some other we had these little transistor radios that people had. Anybody with a transistor radio had tons of people hanging around them just listening. And the phones were, I'm getting off into a story here, but all the phones were on a rolling circuit. So you couldn't call anybody to find out how anybody was or what was happening, because your phone would work and it would work for like 30 seconds. So you'd quickly make your phone calls, tell people the phones are rolling. I just want to let you know everything is fine. I'll talk to you later quick, and they'll be dead already, just going around like that. So, but her Holy Mother didn't get caught up in it. She immediately goes to verify first, right? She immediately finds out what the real story is, tells the disciples, this has happened. Go look, see if you can find out. And then she finds out and says, bring him here immediately, not for his fault, but so that his wife, who thinks that he's dead, that he's drowning in the pond, doesn't get so bothered. Well, her son-in-law. All right. All right. Holy Mother reply. Oh, one afternoon, a few days later, Holy Mother was cutting vegetables on the veranda of her house. Brahmachari Bharada was writing letters in the front room, and suddenly Shorabala appeared in the courtyard and said to the Holy Mother, "You're feeding my daughter opium. You should have made her a cripple in order to exercise control over her. You do not allow my daughter and grandson to come near me." My goodness. So Shorabala definitely had some issues, or trigger issues here. Yeah, read that. There's not much of a lesson there, except that don't be that way. That's all you can really pull out of that is, you know, in a crisis, especially, know what's going on and don't speak things you don't know and don't repeat things that you don't know, and go into verification mode like Holy Mother. Find out what is true, find out what the real situation is, and then deal with that situation in a responsible way. Don't let your mind create stories for you. Sodabala here seems to have a definite problem with that, and that happens. Even to normal, healthy people, you get into a state of mind sometimes, and you interpret things in the wrong way for yourself. I look back on my life, and I did that my whole life because I was always the new kid in town. I was always very sensitive, very hypersensitive toward things I heard or things people said about me. And it always threw me a little bit on the defensive so that I would react too strongly. If someone said a joke at my expense or something, I would get quite pointed in my response. And uh, we have to be careful about that. That's certainly meditation really helps. The mantra really helps with that, to kind of keep the mind on an even keel, to keep yourself steady and not to get caught up in a state of mind that's not real, that's not reasonable, and to act from that place. I mean, of course, that's mental illness at that point, but in its lighter sides, it's just being ill-adjusted,
Yeah,
So
Maharaj,
these,
I think to me this is like really it happens quite often, and the greater the attachment, the greater the chance that one is going to think like that,
yeah,
because and then you just have to see that oh, this is the mind making it up, and then put it to rest. But especially or in the middle of the night when one wakes up, I mean, all these things, it's kind of going down the spiral.
yeah,
It's very, very easy to go into this mode.
you're
So
absolutely right. Yeah, no, in the middle of the night, you're right there too. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and some thought like that comes, and it seems so big and it has so
yeah,
much power in your mind in the dark like that.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, and I've also used my mantra for bringing that under control. And back in my days of depression, that's when that would really happen. Like in the middle of the night, I would get into that dark cycle, and because the mind, I guess, is not very diluted at night. It's very easy. Focus is a lot easier, which is why it's a great time for meditation. But it also can get you into a real state of mind.
yeah,
And I found, one, the mantra is a great way to keep the mind even keeled. The second thing that I really used was I would go into the places where a lot of that stuff was affecting me in the body. Like I would just, that I used to feel like this black kind of, it felt like somebody had taken a black piece of tar and rolled it in broken glass and then pushed it into my chest. That's sort of how it used to feel there. And I remember, that when that would start to happen, and when I was trying to manage it with my practice, because that's initially they put me on those antidepressants, and I took them for a year because I Ramakrishna took his doctor's medicine, so I thought I should take my doctor's medicine too. I took it, but I didn't like being a monk that had to be on pills to not be depressed. I was like, that's not a good look. It shouldn't be that way. So I really worked at developing a practice and trying to search through the Vedanta that I knew to see how could I find some relief in truth. How could I fix this situation? And one of the greatest things that came out of that was going into meditation and visiting the place in my body where I was really hurting or feeling that emotional response. Going there and just picturing myself very clearly standing there unaffected and making a declaration: love will win here. And that was it. I would just walk into the darkest place or walk into the most difficult part of the storm, and I would gather my wits and I would just make the announcement in the middle of that place: love will win here. And that has done more help in helping me pull my mind out of those spirals and to find some control, so that I haven't been on those drugs in more than a decade, now coming up on 15 years. So it's, the God is a very real solution, and the presence is a very powerful presence, and the name which indicates the very highest of those things is good medicine, and I don't think it's a mistake. Well, I know it's not a mistake, but I didn't want to say it out loud. But it's not a mistake to depend on those things, to use the power of meditation and of your practice, which will lead you toward realization, yes, but it can also clean up a lot of the messes that we've made along the way also. So really, lean on your relationship with the beloved. Really lean on that presence within, because Hafiz says that repeating the name of God is like pouring your soul through cheesecloth. With each repetition of the name, you're just a little bit purer. Purer means a little bit less selfishly focused, And so these are all means for dealing with that. She's not talking about it here, but you can see that that's where Mother is, because Mother doesn't get pulled into things. She doesn't react. She responds. So she hears this terrible thing about. She was told directly that Srodabala's son-in-law had drowned in the Ghat. She didn't take that as fact. She just quickly went and to find out what the real situation was, but remained calm through the whole thing. So now we have Surabala coming and literally offending her, saying something horrible to her, accusing her of feeding her daughter opium so that she can control her daughter, and then saying, you've made her a cripple in order to exercise your control over her. Well, what a horrible thing to say to somebody, about a family member like that, especially to the Holy Mother. But look at this very first sentence here. Holy Mother replied with utter detachment. She, again, no reaction, no anger, no backhanding someone in the kitchen. Holy Mother replied with utter detachment. There is your daughter. Take her away. Have I hidden her? But Surabala was determined to pick a quarrel and became flushed with anger. She picked up a piece of firewood from the kitchen veranda and was about to strike the Holy Mother with it. Holy Toledo. The mother cried out loud, "Who is there? Oh, Bharata, come quickly. This insane woman is going to kill me." Bharata rushed to the spot and found Surabala about to hit the mother's head. He hurriedly snatched the firewood from her and then drove her from the house and forbade her to enter it again. Agitated, the mother forgot herself momentarily and said, "You madwoman, what were you about to do? Your hand will wither away." Oh my. The next moment she regretted her slip and bit her tongue. She folded her hands and prayed to the Master. "O Master, what have I done? My lips have never uttered any curses. At long last, that too has happened. Why live any more?" Bharata saw the mother weeping and was astonished by her compassion. Shortly after Holy Mother passed away, Shodabala was attacked with leprosy. She began to lose her fingers, and before long, she passed away. My goodness. So you see, what's that? So this was Holy Mother's last visit to Jairambati. She passes away a few months after this, according to the footnote here. But you see, I mean, even to see mother lose, well, she didn't really lose control. She just, it says that she forgot herself momentarily. What a nice way of saying it. That's exactly it. We forget our nature. We forget the reality, and we act like bodies and minds, right? Because bodies and minds can get hurt, threatened, insulted, insecure. And so anytime we're attacked, anytime we do, anytime we act in a way that we would be ashamed of, it's always good to know that that's not you. It's because you've identified with things that aren't you, things that can be hurt, things that can be insulted, things that can be weak, you know. So it's at the root of these things, it's always our identity with body mind. That's the only reason for us to get angry, because that association with body mind, that identity with body mind, that is the ego. I mean, that is how the ego is composed, and just gathering up memories from the past to define itself, usually based on experience of body mind. And so when the writer here says a mother forgot herself momentarily, that's exactly what happened. She forgot her divine nature, and stepped into the body mind, which had just been severely insulted and was under attack, active attack, from Surabala. And she curses her, says that very hand will wither away. And she knew that it would come true because of who she is. And so she began weeping about that. She didn't justify herself or excuse herself. She wept. Bhavini lived with her mother next to Holy Mother's house in Jairambati. Holy Mother's attendants looked after Bhavini's mother, who was not well, and Holy Mother regularly gave them vegetables, fruit, and other necessities. One day she gave 2 pomegranates to Bhavini for her mother. While Bhavini was there, a big parcel of fruit arrived from Ramchi. Bhavini heaved a sigh and commented, at first it was proposed that I marry Parahamsa Deva, Sri Ramakrishna, but my father did not give me in marriage to him, considering him to be mad. If I had been married to him, then all these things would have come to me. I would not have to depend on anybody. Rather, I would distribute these things to others. At this, the Holy Mother and the people in the household laughed. She said to Bhavini, "It does not matter that you were not married to the Paramahamsa. Please take whatever you need." She then said to Brahmachari Bharata, "Keep a few fruits for the master and give some papayas, pomegranates, and other fruits to Bhavini." I don't know what to say there. It's quite a sweet compassion, though. She was just told, what an odd thing to say to a woman. Oh, if I'd married your husband, then I wouldn't have to worry about any of these fruits. I wouldn't have to just take 2 pomegranates. All of this would have come to me. I can't even imagine a situation where somebody would say something like that and feel all right about it anyway. But here she did, and the way Mother is so gracious, Mother's very gracious and gives her the fruit anyway. Says, "Oh, look, don't worry. It doesn't matter that you didn't get to marry the Paramahamsa. Look, he will provide for you anyway." A very sweet response. The divine drama. Oh gosh, more. There's plenty of drama here on these 2 pages. I would have already been moving into the next town. The divine drama. After reading this chapter, the reader might wonder why Holy Mother endured all these trials. There's an irony. Why was this divine being surrounded by selfish, jealous, quarrelsome, and greedy relatives? She could easily have had a joyful and comfortable life in Calcutta with her wonderful devotees and disciples. The reader should remember that Holy Mother was acting in her divine drama. She needed both good and bad characters in her play. A drama cannot be interesting if there is no friction between good and evil. The more the hero or heroine of a play is opposed, persecuted, and ill-treated, the more that character shines and arouses affection in the audience. For example, when in a performance, Sita is abducted by Ravana, and Dushasan publicly humiliates Draupadi, the viewer's love and sympathy wells up for Sita and Draupadi, and at the same time they are filled with anger and abhorrence toward the villains. In her own drama, Holy Mother selected bad and worldly roles for some of her relatives, and good and spiritual roles for her devotees, just as Ramakrishna had done before. And it's very true. I mean, certainly the trust that I have in Holy Mother, I could not have had that kind of trust if I hadn't seen the way she treated, everybody. Why? I don't even have to pick out a particular person in there. She treated everybody. You're constantly reading about another neighbor that's getting yet another shipment of food and vegetables and fresh made food stuff from Mother. She's just constantly like that, constantly serving like that. And it's such a wonder that really, I think that's the reason that I just love spiritual life and really am interested in this ideal. It's not the rewards of it. I remember I had been in the monastery for about 8 years, I think 6 or 8 years. I don't remember now. It's getting a long time ago. 6 or 8 years I was there, and I remember having this sudden bout of doubt. Because it was 6 years. A sudden bout of doubt. I was like, oh my God, I've given up everything to move into this monastery. My degree in computer science is slowly rotting, becoming more and more out of date, and I'm getting older, and I'm going to be less and less hireable. All these thoughts were going through my mind because approaching my 40s, and hadn't been working in 6 years, and wasn't going to be working in the time, and I was just looking at my options, slowly just dropping off, and I got terrified. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? What if this isn't true? What if this isn't true? What if this is all a bunch of nonsense? And look what a fool I've been, throwing all my whole life into this, all of my eggs in a single basket. And so I got quite worked up about it, and I went to the shrine to sit there and sort it out. And I'm so happy that I did, because I laid my complaint out to Mother. I laid out all my fears, and then just sat quietly. And I feel like I got some understanding, because I thought to myself, okay, well, suppose there's nothing when you die. Suppose you just die and you're done. You're gone. And I thought, well, if that's the case, then it doesn't matter what you do with your life. If you just die at the end, it doesn't matter. You can do anything you want, I said. And so, given the fact that I can do anything that I want, I think that choosing this life where I serve my highest ideal, the highest ideal I can imagine and think of, this life is about reaching that, about lauding that, about thinking of that, about being inundated with that. And I thought, so if there's nothing, I still choose this life. I still choose a life of renunciation. What is the point of becoming, a parasite on the planet for desire, for pleasure? Why why become a parasite for pleasure? Is that really the answer, just because there's nothing? And so I just decided, well, that doesn't matter at all then. And then I thought to myself, well, and if it is true, if I can realize God, well, then of course, this is what I want to do. Of course, this is worth everything, And then I thought, well, and even if I don't know what comes true, because there's not really any way of knowing without faith, and I'm never happy with answers that require faith. That's probably a terrible thing for a Swami to say, but it's true. I don't want to take these things on faith. If they're true, they should be observable, experienceable, and I should be able to walk into them and know them to be true. And so that's really where most of my ideas come from. Also, when I read these truths in the scriptures, I cannot tolerate the idea of just leaving them in the book. They have to be mine. And if I can't say they're true from my own experience and my own internal investigation, then how could I say that they're true to anybody else? And I went through that period, that challenge, I guess, after 6 years. But the resolution of it felt so true to me that it's never bothered me again. I don't think about it at all. Partially because I'm so thoroughly convinced that this is so, because of the beautiful effect it's had on my whole interior world. I think back of the anxieties and the desperations with which I pursued any distraction I could find in my life. And to I remember just reading Moksha Prana, and immediately just this vista of possibilities, from that little experience I had with her. It was so beautiful because life had gotten so narrow for me. My desperation to stay busy and occupied at every moment, um, because I just couldn't stand being alone. I just, it's amazing how much of that was taken care of just in that 10 minutes with Moksha Prana, and then just having a new vista for the possibilities of life open up. Because part of my world, maybe I'm talking too much about this, but I remember in the days when I was working, I worked at San Francisco State University, as a IT guy, and I was in the business management information systems group, and so I met with all of the bigwigs all the time, the presidents and the managers and the department heads and whatnot. And there was always such a bureaucratic heebie-jeebie about it all, because I would look around and I'd be like, oh my God, this is my future. I'm just going to be one of these people, overweight and balding and just making way too much money for doing way too little. The whole that whole world was around me in the academics there, and I was like, oh my God. And but I didn't know what else there was. I mean, what a terrible thing to see a future that you're headed straight forward for, and to not want that, but to have no idea what else there is. To what do I do with this life? What do I do with these five senses? What do I do with this mouth and these eyes and these ears? It's, can it really be all just for enjoying all the time? Just for trying to jump from one flower to the next until you can't jump anymore? Is this really what life is? And so it's wonderful to see these greats who have found something original and something unique and something infinitely, really infinitely beautiful, something that you can spend a whole life on, and only go deeper and deeper and deeper. And you can interpolate if you do these things just for a year. Who was it? Was it Brahmananda said that? Someone says, "Go and do this for a year, and if you haven't felt some bliss, come back and slap me." Is what he said. And I really think that's true. The truth is in your practice. Do your practice. Try it for a year. Of course, most of us here have been doing it at least a year together, even. But we do touch something. There is enough there to say, yeah, it's look a little bit deeper. We keep catching that glimpse, and so don't be afraid to doubt. Don't be afraid to be insecure about it. Don't be afraid to wonder. There's nothing wrong with thinking anything you want to think or investigating anything you need to investigate, but be honest. That is the one call, I think, that's the hardest in this day and age, is to, one, know your inner thoughts, and then to be honest about them, and take care of yourself in that regard. If you're feeling doubt, don't hide it. Don't feel ashamed of it. Don't not share it because you don't want anybody to think, oh, I don't want to be faithless. I don't want to look like I'm full of doubts. But if you want to share, or if you think that'd be helpful, share it that way. But always take it to the mother first. Just go and sit and be quiet and see, because that's really how faith is built. I believe that anyway. Faith is built through experience. And you can't get that experience if you don't give the divine a chance or a test, as it were. Ramakrishna is tested several times by his devotees in the gospel, where they want to make sure, And there's many times too where that one disciple was washing Holy Mother's feet, and he was looking at them; they were all old and wrinkled, and he thought to himself, how can this be the Divine Mother with feet like this? Why? How could the Divine Mother have feet like this? And he was sitting there thinking that, and he looked up at Holy Mother, and she had become, I think it was Lakshmi. She had been with all of her jewels and all of her beauty and all of her wonder. And he looked down and he was holding, an equally beautiful foot. And then he blinked his eyes, rubbed his eyes like, what? Still saw her that way. And then she withdrew herself back into herself. So don't be afraid, to have your doubts. It's very normal. It's very natural. But be honest and take them to the divine, take them to the mother. Don't hide them. Don't feel shame over them. Be bold in your doubts. Look at Vivekananda. He went through a period of being an atheist, and he wasn't quiet about it. He just announced to everybody in the group, I'm an atheist. And the word got back to Thakur. The gossipers got to Thakur and told him, oh, look what your star disciple is saying. Look, he's turning into an atheist. And Ramakrishna also, just in that wonderful centered way, was like, oh, that's nothing. that's just a stage. Everybody gets part of the path, part of spiritual life is to go through times like that. So always keeping that broad view, always keeping that open mind, not grabbing onto little particulars and getting all worked up and creating smallness out of it, which is what happens when we identify with body mind. We just get small, and we get alarmed, and we get worked up, and we get emotional, and we lose all of our ability to reason, our ability to discern, and we make wrong decisions. So we can see in Holy Mother here, that she didn't get caught up in it. And the one time that she did, it was her compassion that brought her back, to her reality. So this is how to live. And that everybody's necessary, the good and the bad, right? Which is true. That you can't have saints without sinners. So everybody has a role. You'll have to figure out what that role is, though. Don't. Chapter 21, Pilgrimage in South India. Yudhishthira to Vidura, O great one, lovers of God like you, having yourselves risen to the highest of holiness, sanctify the holy places by your visit, bringing the presence of Narayana who resides in you. That's exactly right. I mean, that's what Thakur says. Of course, that's what the Gita says, that God does this. He comes and visits us every now and then, takes a human form in order to bring back balance, that there might be some possibility of us having realization, that we don't get trapped in this world. And they come and they leave a beautiful light behind, a beautiful influence that we can take refuge in, that we can catch a glimpse of. And that's why I really like this idea of religion being a singularity, it being a river and not a series of puddles, around these people, but that it's a singular flow of wisdom that's getting ever deeper and wider every time the Lord comes. And that we can use the teachings of all the avatars to bring ourselves forward, and to help us work through ways of mind that one religion may not deal with well, and another religion deals with immensely well. And so we can take the most helpful parts of all of these teachings and find a great deal of strength in it, a great deal of inspiration in it. So our writer starts off, travel breaks the monotony of daily life, drawing people to explore new places, new people, new cultures, and new languages. Spiritual pilgrims are a special type of traveler. They seek to breathe the freshness of the eternal. Pilgrims travel to broaden their outlook and education, destroy their self-centeredness and narrowness, eradicate their physical lethargy and mental laziness, and to enhance their love and hunger for God. They get inspiration from the saints and sages who have resided in holy places that they visit, and they also come in contact with many other seekers of God. The ancient sages remind us that all people are pilgrims, and this world is but a temporary place for pilgrimage. We must live here as pilgrims without worldly attachments, and we must always go onward toward the goal. Pilgrims understand this: the world is a bridge. Pass over it, but build no house upon it. That's a great metaphor right there. This world is a bridge. I don't know from where to where. I think that's an interesting idea. But either way, it's a temporary place. We're only here for a very short time. My Lord, you know, I've gotten in this bad habit of constantly adding 10 years to my life. And that didn't used to hurt so bad. You know, what was it to think, oh gosh, I'm going to be 30? But these days I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, 10 years, I'm going to be 70. And, you know, we've got a really bad habit in this culture of never allowing, always saying, oh, that's not old. You know, it's like I've literally told my mother somebody was 82 and she's like, oh, that's not so old. I'm like, what scale or what measurement are you people living under? My Lord. It's like 82, you're almost dead. What are you telling me you're not old?
Don't
It's
say that.
well, we have to be honest with
Talking
it.
to 80-year-olds. What are we listening to?
No, I know I do. I know I do. And it's a favor to hear these things. I don't say them with any malice whatsoever. You know, it's like I fully expect to rock around, you know, asking people when I'm 80 if I'm still alive. You know, sweetie, could you pinch me? I just need to check, need to verify here. You know, because I'm
Your body will tell you. I can tell you each and every joint of your body will tell you. You don't need anything, any pinching from anybody.
I know, but what's the fun of suffering silently? I'll have everybody pinching so I can share my fear. No, it's there. What is this? I say it really and truly. I say it because what is there to fear? You are about to be free from a body. You know, I'm not going to play along that old age is something that we can't, you know, that we hide from and can't face and can't. It's like if you're old, be old. If you're in your 80s, no, you're going to die. You're practically dead. Don't be alarmed by that. Be strengthened by that. Find a wonder in that. You know, I remember that young man. He was 27 years old, laying on the bed, dying of AIDS when I was in my 20s. You know, he was 27 years old. And I went in there and I was like, I sat and had this wonderful conversation. I was like, I told him, I said, God, because especially then I knew nothing of Vedanta. I had no spiritual practice. You know, I was just the most worldly cretin in the, you know, out there just trying to find the next thing to make me feel good. And I sat down in his bed and I was like, God, I can't even imagine your situation. I said, you know, we're both the same age, and you know, you said the doctor said you're going to be dead probably within 2 weeks. I said, God, I would be horrified. I would just be in such a situation of panic right now, you know, with that. And he looked at me and he smiled and he says, yeah, I went through a period like that. You know, there was when they first told me, I felt that way, you know, but after I've had time to sit and just think about it reasonably, you know, to know that everybody comes to this place, everybody's going to have to make this acceptance. And when I realized that everybody's going to be right along with me here, he said that took the fear away. And I kind of thought, how bad can something that is just a simple part of life, how bad can it be if it's 100% shared by every single person? He says, oh, I really began to think about the fact that in my life, I've always had an idea of what was coming next. There was never a real adventure. I had never really been on an adventure. And he said, when I realized that for the first time in my life, I'm about to go on a real adventure, something that I have no idea what's coming. I have no idea where this is leading. And he says, I tell you, frankly, I'm excited. And he told me this with a smile on his face in the hospital dying. You know, it wasn't put on for me. He told me right then and there, he's like, this is an adventure. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not afraid anymore. And I actually began crying when he told me that, because I was so amazed and so inspired that somebody could be so brave at 27, you know, to face death it just straight on like that, and to be prepared to go on an adventure. So when I say you're 80 years old and you're almost dead, I'm not, that's not a morbid thing. This is life. It's just the way it is. There's no need to pretend it's not. And death, I think, I mean, I don't know. I'm not, of course, like I taught Swami Prabhupada, and he had that awareness that you can go anytime. Because I remember I asked him, I said, what's it like to be 80 when he turned 80? I said, because in my mind, I was thinking, I always think in terms of 5-year plans, or I was at that point in my life. I don't do that anymore. But back then, I always had a 5-year plan, you know, 5 years, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to accomplish. And I told him, I said, God, it must be really, I said, what's it like being 80? I said, you can't fit a 5-year plan in there securely. You, you don't know that you've got 5 years. What do you do? And, he looked at me, gave me the most straightforward, obvious answer. He's like, it's no different than when I was 20, because I've always known I was never promised even one more minute, let alone another day. He said, this is why I've lived the life that I've lived. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't think about it that way, because I've always had at least 50 years guaranteed to me. I walked around my whole life, I assumed I had at least 10 left. Even now I assume that I'm going to experience 70. But we don't know that. And that's fine. This isn't who we are. This isn't real. All of this nonsense that we put ourselves through, this is just passing on the way. And by all the things that we've heard, you read, if you get into those near-death experiences or whatnot, I don't really tend to myself to get into those too much, but I occasionally am given one to read, and from all the reports I've seen, it ain't so bad. There's a great sense of peace that seems to come over us. There's wonderful light, and there's the divine, and there's this feeling of knowing that everything is perfect. You get this sense of unity. The amount of knowledge that you apparently have access to. I've read in a couple of those NDEs, that when this particular woman who wrote the one that I'm thinking about, she came back to this world, and she said the one thing that she was sorry for was that she knew that when she came back into her body, that the mind that she had would not be able to contain the amount of knowledge that she knew when she was out of the body. And so, if that's helpful, that's cool. Otherwise, just accept where we are in life. Accept that these bodies are not ours. That they from the day you get it, you're on your way to death. And look at that straight in the eye. Don't be afraid. Look at it straight in the eye. It's an adventure. You're one of billions and billions and billions who have gone through it. And we're all going to do it. And you have to do it alone. Oddly enough, you have to do it alone. So there's something in that too, because I think there's nothing more intimate between you and the beloved than you there knowing that you're moments away from that connection without the body, without this distortion, without this confusion. So yes, you are on a pilgrimage in this world. This world is a bridge. Do not build your home here. You will not be here very long. And don't be afraid. Be inspired. All the beauty that created this world is behind it. And that's what you will see. That's where it ends up, according to at least the majority of things that I've read. All right. So pass over it, but build no house upon it. Wonderful. All right, we'll do one more here. The longest journey is the journey to the inmost self. Holy Mother had completed her inward journey when she was young, but after the Master's passing away, she began to travel in India to distribute her spiritual treasures. It had not been possible for Ramakrishna to travel far because he was in an ecstatic state most of the time. Well, there's an interesting thing. So she was also a big part of the disseminating of this divine truth of Ramakrishna. This beautiful mind of renunciation, of an incredible love, an, an incredible equanimity, and what an amazing breadth of thought, of experience, that he found a way experientially of harmonizing everything that we've been fighting about for thousands of years. You know, he's found such a beautiful resolution to the arguments that the pundits went on for decades, centuries, and found a way of harmonizing them, saw how they all worked together in a cohesive wholeness and a beauty to it. What an amazing expansion it is. And I think if we see life properly, if we see death properly, if we see old age properly, all of those are expansions, right? Because old age, all the pain of your joints, they're not saying to you that they're dying necessarily. But they're saying to you, don't be attached to this. Don't love this. You know, don't think this is anything of value to you. And you watch it decay. I mean, look how tightly we hold on to the thing. I mean, by the time some people let go of their body, there was nothing to hold on to. You know, there was nothing there. But that's the extreme that Mother has to take us to in order to get us to let go. You know, we hold on to this thing in its worst shape. We're still clutch and terror to it. And no need. No need. The nature of the universe is Satchitananda. All the sages have said that. Universally, the sages have said that this universe is the nature of God, you know, the nature of love and wisdom, being. So this is how we live, fearlessly, boldly, honestly, going on our adventure. Non-resistance, the practice of acceptance. Take the moment as it comes, make gold, offer it, and grab the next moment. All right.